specific purposes such as education, to purchase a home or commercial property, or invest in business. Any child in Jamaica born on or after the 60th anniversary of our independence, that is August 6, 2022, who is part of the PATH program, meaning that they are born into a PATH household, or they are a ward of the state, will be eligible for this process. The central idea behind the program is to provide children with a lump sum to start them in life upon attaining adulthood. Our initial target is a lump sum of between $600,000 and $800,000 to be available on the 18th birthday of any eligible child. We will also explore alternatives to establish and manage this program. It could be part of the National Insurance Fund, or we may consider having private insurance companies administer the fund. This is, I believe, a groundbreaking initiative. Of the NHD's loan limit has been undertaken with the intent of improving the affordability to contributors. As a result, the loan limits will be increased to bring the maximum benefit in closer alignment with prevailing market conditions. Effective July 1, 2023, the general loan limit for a single applicant will be increased to $7.5 million.
I feel that they might try to do something for poor people. It not reach 100%, but it's getting there.
That's a good increase because for persons who are struggling like myself, it can find a little bit easier.
They might increase the chance people can get for other house or can have things, isn't it?
Pedestrians reacting to the news revealed by Prime Minister Andrew Holness in Parliament. As the Prime Minister stated, single applicants will go from $6.5 million to $7.5 million. This means two people may access up to $15 million to purchase a home. It's up to $21 million when three family members pull their resources together.
Home ownership is indeed a big deal, and all our loan offerings are geared towards assisting our contributors in becoming homeowners. And so we have mortgages under two broad categories: homeowners loan and non-homeowners loans.
Under the non-homeowners loan, one can purchase a home on the open market, purchase land to build, or you may access funds to build on land you already own.
So for the build on own land loan, you own the land, as the name suggests. You have a title for the property. Or you may not have a title for the property, but you have what is called undisputed ownership. You have documentation that shows that you are the right owner, you're the legal owner of the property.
For the homeowner's loan, this is where an actual homeowner who has never received an NHD loan can borrow money to renovate their home. For those going the route of buying, bear in mind that once you have decided to purchase land or any property, you need to be pre-approved for a loan.
To get a pre-approval letter, you'd be able to do so by supplying us with a job letter that verifies your income and contributions to the NHD. The TRN, you should have a TRN card, a NIS card, a government-issued ID, and your last 2 months' payslips. But if you're self-employed, then you would have to visit our compliance department and request what is called a mortgage memo. This is simply an electronic
Good afternoon, everyone. Just to let you know, all media entities, including those who are not normally news entities, will be taking our feed here from the banquet hall live. And so we're asking everyone to just resume their seats so that we can start in 3 minutes at 1:30. So once again, for all our ministers and guests who are here, all media entities in Jamaica have indicated that they are taking our feed live, and so we would like to begin at 1:30, which is in 3 minutes.
That's one. And
so we're sending the signals now. If everyone could just resume their seats. And we'll begin in 3 minutes.
The longer you are contributing, the more points you would have accumulated. And for every 52 weeks that you are a contributor, you are awarded 20 points. So that adds up over time.
If you are considering purchasing NHT housing, be sure to keep up to date with their website for all the relevant information. And when you are ready to purchase, be sure you have all your relevant data on hand.
So you're going to want to have on hand records of your employment issues. So person will say to me, Mrs. Smith, I'm ready to apply for my scheme. And I say, how long have you been contributing? And the answer is enough years. No, you need to know when you worked at a particular company and for how many years. Because when you are doing your online application for scheme, you need to be very specific. You worked at Montego Bay Club 2000 to 2010. You worked at Dundee 1985 to 1990. So you have to be very specific.
And for those people who may want to subdivide land and build with other like-minded individuals,
cluster housing has been renamed and rebranded, and it is now called Build 9. Okay, so it's no longer cluster, it's Build 9. So what is Build 9? It is a facility where we allow groups of persons to acquire land, and the NHT will assist with subdivision of the land, splintering of the title, and installation of the infrastructure.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for a special edition of the Post-Cabinet Press Briefing. As would have been announced before, the Prime Minister had a briefing session with all heads of agencies that are responsible for disaster preparedness, and we are now going to be going into some updates to the people of Jamaica in relation to our preparedness for Hurricane Beryl. I should note that in that briefing that was done to the Prime Minister and to Cabinet, we heard from several agencies across government, all of which showed that they were prepared and they all went through their plans for Hurricane Beryl, and I think we are in good stead in relation to preparedness across government, across all of the government agencies that have a responsibility. And so today we're going to go very quickly into it. We're not going to delay. We are going to have Mr. Evan Thompson come first, and I will tell you a bit of the order today. We will have our head of the Met Office come. We'll also have ODPEM giving an update. We will have the NWA and the NWC doing updates. And then we will also have the JCF and the JDF. Following that, we will also get an overarching statement from Minister Mackenzie and also from our Prime Minister at the end. So that's the order within which we will be working today, and we will go through very quickly to show the state of readiness of this government for Hurricane Beryl. Mr. Thompson, thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to everyone, media, Jamaicans all. A very good day to you. Of course, you would be aware that we are currently preparing ourselves for Hurricane Beryl that is just moving into the Eastern Caribbean. It has already passed a couple of the islands in terms of the center of the system, and it is now continuing to move into the Eastern Caribbean and thereafter expected to move into the Central and then Western Caribbean. We are monitoring the system primarily because it is projected to move in the direction of Jamaica and should be very close to, if not over the island, in another 2 days or so, maybe slightly less than 2 days, because we are expecting the activity to begin across Jamaica early on Wednesday. Now, this system is currently a Category 4 hurricane. It is continuing to move westward with some fluctuations in the strength. At some points, it was downgraded to a Category 3 hurricane, if we could call that a downgrade, because that is still a powerful system, but it has again been bumped up to Category 4. Let me step back with these slides. Okay, that's the first one, just showing you where that system is located. The image shows that the center of the system is just about in the Eastern Caribbean now, and it continues westward. It is a powerful system, and so it requires our attention. The latest bulletin that was issued by the Meteorological Service was issued at 11 a.m. today, and we are scheduled for our next bulletin, number 4, at 2 p.m. So it's currently in production. 2 points that I would like to raise from this latest bulletin. First of all, is that a hurricane watch has been issued for Jamaica. So Jamaica is under a hurricane watch, which means that conditions that are associated with a hurricane are posing a threat to Jamaica and are possible over our area within 48 hours. That's something that we need to take note of. A watch means conditions are possible and within 48 hours. Of course, if it becomes more expected, we will move that to a warning, a hurricane or tropical storm warning, but that is yet to be decided. At this point in time, we have a hurricane watch that is in effect for Jamaica. Also to be pointed out in bulletin number 3 is that fishers, those marine operators who are off our coast, have been encouraged over the past day or so to move inland and to vacate the waters moving to the mainland. We expect that this activity has been completed and that all our fishers and marine operators are currently safeguarding their properties on land and ensuring that they are ready to face, if we move to a warning, dealing with their families and ensuring the safety of their families. Moving on with the slides, I would indicate that the latest position is indicated on this chart. We can see that the system is already a major hurricane, will continue to move into the Eastern Caribbean as a major hurricane. But when it gets into the Central Caribbean, conditions are less favorable. There is some wind shear that could result in a reduction in the strength of the winds in the system. That is a positive sign for us here in Jamaica, because we are just left of center. We are just in the west central part of the Caribbean. So if that does take place, we are in a more favorable conditions for less strengthening of the system. And we're also seeing over the past few hours that there has been a slight shift in the forecast projected track of this system, with it now being expected to have its center move not directly over the island, but just off our coastline. I must point out that this is the current projection, but this could change in the next 24 hours. There could be a shift that brings it back over the island. Therefore, we have to maintain our alertness and maintain our monitoring of this system. All systems are in full operation in the Meteorological Service. We are continuing to keep our contacts open with all our partners in the region and primarily with the National Hurricane Center of the U.S., or what we refer to as our Regional Specialized Meteorological Center. They operate on behalf of all of us in the region, North America, Central America, and the Caribbean, and they are monitoring and providing us with the latest information. They have also been advised that the government of Jamaica has issued that hurricane watch for the country, and so they have made it public in their network right across the globe. The points that are raised in red on the left of your screen are just indicating the closest points to Jamaica. One when it is southeast of the island, and the next when it is just southwest. That's Hurricane Beryl being just southwest of the island. In each case, the expected strength of the system would be between 105 and 110 miles per hour. That puts us in the category of the realm of Category 2 hurricane, as you can see on the Saffir-Simpson scale. That is the wind scale for hurricanes. Scale 2 indicates, or Category 2 indicates, that the wind speed would be between 96 and 110 miles per hour. So the current projection is that on passing Jamaica, the system is likely to be a Category 2 hurricane, and that means extremely dangerous winds could cause extensive damage. It's nothing to scoff at, it's nothing to be complacent about, because it is still a serious and dangerous situation. Finally, I just wanted to point out that in the key messages that have been promoted by the Regional Specialized Meteorological Center, Beryl is expected to remain powerful, moving right through the central and the northwestern Caribbean, and the watch, it has indicated, is now in effect for Jamaica. Jamaica is expected to anticipate the hazards that are related to hurricanes. That includes very heavy rainfall, it includes very strong winds, it also includes devastating storm surge. And what is most critical in this case is that the activity would come up along our southern coastline if the center of the system moves off our coast to the south. Therefore, any inlet, any bay along the southern coastline is at risk of storm surge flooding. So similar kinds of activity that have occurred in Caribbean Estate in the past with Hurricane Ivan, I believe it was, and then also in Portland Cottage in Clarendon, those communities and all other communities along the south coast would be at particular threat of storm surge flooding. Also, landslides are something that we need to be careful about as the system moves close. The rainfall anticipated during this event would be tremendous, and so we must prepare ourselves for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. And we're going to be moving right along to an update from Ed Odpem, who is the lead, has a lot of experience in disaster management in Jamaica. And I invite Mr. Richard Thompson, the acting director of ODPEM, to address us.
Good afternoon again, all. Just a quick update on the part of the ODPEM. So the ODPEM, as a National Disaster Coordinator, I've been having a series of NEOC planning meetings as it relates to dealing with the impending threat of Hurricane Beryl. We started very early in this process, given what we are seeing in the Caribbean at this time of the year, June being very early for a system of this magnitude. We started very early with our planning meeting from Thursday of last week, and we had a series of meetings going from Friday into the weekend, where we discuss a number of matters as it relates to our preparedness. We took a lot of information coming in from the parishes. Given the parish disaster risk management setup is really where the rubber hits the road as it relates to our response in our communities. So we took all those information, we took presentations from all the other members of the National Disaster Risk Management team and the overall members of the National Disaster Risk Management framework, looking at aspects of shelter, relief distribution, pre-positioning, evacuation of our threatened areas, looking at scenario development. We did 3 scenario development for the impending system. We will be now doing a more detailed scenario development now that we have seen that it will track to the south side of us. and we place a lot of emphasis on our shelters, looking at what is required for our shelter preparedness. And the discussions were had there with the Ministry of Education, looking at the fact that most of our shelters, total of 870 shelters, that about 80% of those are in fact schools, and what is required as it relates to those shelter preparedness. Supplies in shelter in terms of pre-positioning and the communication process between the local authorities, the shelter managers, and the school system, the management of the schools, the principals and the other persons within the schools, to ensure that if needs be and we have to activate shelters, that the system is in place for the shelters to be open in a timely manner. The National Emergency Operations Center operates within cells, and we ensure that direction was given and directive was given over the weekend for those cells to meet, to have their internal preparedness planning process being at the ready. So some of the cells that we look at was the humanitarian cell, which is headed by the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, our communication cell, which is GIS Health, Ministry of Health Operations Cell, headed by the Jamaica Fire Brigade, and the security cells. We ensure those meetings are currently taking place, and you would have heard it was given to the cabinet earlier that a lot of those planning meetings started actually from yesterday. So we are moving now, looking at what we have to do when we get closer to the hit in terms of pre-positioning of our supplies and the necessary work that has to be done on the humanitarian side and the shelter management side. So we have put in place a lot of work and a lot of effort in terms of our preparedness. We are leaving no stone unturned, given the fact that it takes only one system to cause major impact for us as a small island developing state. And we have to ensure that all the work that we have done and all the economic gains that have been made, that the full ambit of our disaster risk management apparatus is in full gear to ensure that the country and ultimately our people are protected. So that's where we are currently, and the work continues. I'm sure when we all leave here, we'll be having another series of meetings to ensure that we are putting everything in place to deal with the eventuality of the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. And we are going to be going to NWA and then NWC. So NWA will be represented by E.G. Hunter. And then right after him, we'll have NWC represented by Kevin Carr, the acting president.
Good afternoon, everyone. Following on the heels of my colleague from ODPEM, the NWA, we are primarily responsible for the maintenance of the island's main road network, and we also have a pivotal role to play in floodwater control. In relation to those two areas of responsibility, the NWA, first of all, has activated our parish teams, and the parish teams are in contact with the local municipalities as well as the relevant disaster preparedness apparatus in each of the respective parish. In addition to the activation of our parish teams, our construction sites have also been phased to reduce the impact of the hurricane, and in particular, the damage caused by water. The runoff on the construction site is usually exacerbated by open areas on the construction site. So we've taken steps to mitigate against that. Some of the more vulnerable areas in this regard, on the South Coast Highway Improvement Projects, which you all know about, areas such as Harbour View to Yalas Bridge, Stella Road, Shooters Hill, Rest Haven, Open Sea Close, Morales Drive, Peasant Drive, and Comrose Drive. These are areas which are particularly vulnerable, and we have taken special steps to secure the site in these locations. In addition to cauterizing or attempting to cauterize the impact on our construction sites, we're also responsible for drain cleaning. And while drain cleaning is tremendously important, I did make the point early on that incidences of flooding should not be necessarily confused with lack of drain cleaning, because it is the capacity of the drain that ultimately determines whether or not flooding occurs. Nonetheless, we started our drain cleaning activity in May. Each constituency was voted a minimum of $1 million to undertake drain cleaning, and those activities started in May, as I said, and are continuing to this day. In addition to the constituency-based drainage cleaning exercise, we've also added a couple of other areas based on our analysis. Wikiwaki in St. Andrew, the Sandy Gully, we spoke about the Sandy Gully, the two bridges on the Sandy Gully in the vicinity of the Washington Boulevard and on Spanish Town Road are particularly vulnerable to the sediment that accumulates in the gully. And so we started cleaning the Sandy Gully in those particular areas over the weekend. And we will continue until Minister Clark's money runs out. Initially, we had earmarked, I think, about $6 billion for the Sandy Gully. The Prime Minister was generous enough to have secured additional funding for us, and we continue the drain cleaning on the Sandy Gully. But it's an enormous job cleaning the Sandy Gully. We've also tackled the South and the North Gully in St. James, Danvers Pen in St. Thomas, low-lying areas in Kingston, Portmore, Seaview Gardens. Those areas are being given special attention. The drain along Marcus Garvey Drive, we're all familiar with the periodic flooding which occurs on Marcus Garvey Drive. Again, it is to be understood that flooding on Marcus Garvey Drive is really a manifestation of a very large drainage area that starts in Papine, and Marcus Garvey Drive is the end point. So flooding on Marcus Garvey Drive is largely impacted by Richmond Park, Crossroads, Papine, all the way down, and it ends on Marcus Garvey Drive. So we have taken the precaution to do some cleaning in that area. But again, as I said before, you know, we are really realistic. The intensity of the rains that are anticipated will overwhelm the capacity, the existing capacity of the drains in those areas. So some flooding will be expected, and we advise the public to adhere to the warnings being given by the various agencies. We've also done some emergency drain cleaning in Ocherius and St. Anne's Bay area as well. We will this afternoon be activating our Emergency Operations Center, which is a satellite of the National Emergency Operations Center. And in that center, we will receive reports of flooding, we will receive reports of roadblocks, and our teams will be mobilized to respond. And we'll also be in a position to coordinate that information and prepare for Cabinet the updated reports on a daily basis. So that's our report.
Good afternoon, all. My updates are to share with you what the NWC have been doing, what we plan to do in the event of Beryl. We at the NWC, we are the main service. We're in potable water and wastewater services provider on the island. We have activated our in-house committee for preparedness, for which I am the chairman. So I've reminded the teams of what is it that we are to do, and there are some general pre-hurricane readiness activities that we have put in place, some of which include reminder of the disaster committees, reminder of participation in the other stakeholder committees that we need to share information with. We are to update our contact listing and share with ADPEN and the municipal corporations. Other pre-activities include reinforcing our disaster plan, further review of procurement of emergency supplies that were done. We have put in place additional chemicals that will be needed during the event of Beryl. We will fill all storage tanks as of tomorrow. As you would know, most of our surface sources are impacted by turbidity, which is dirty water. We will also fill all our gasoline storage to ensure that our water trucks, both NWC and private, will have access to fuel in the event of service disruption. We have also ensured that all pumping stations that were out of operations are put back in service to ensure business continuity and service reliability during the period. Also, some other before onset hurricane activities. We will operate all facilities up to the point when there is no power supply. I am also sharing that there are some critical facilities that have standby capacity to serve all the areas where hospitals are located. Also, in addition, our ongoing water restrictions, we have lifted all the restrictions island-wide to ensure residents have opportunity to fill their storage as of tomorrow morning. And finally, we at the NWC, we will be with you, the citizens of Jamaica, during this period, and we will weather the storm together. Thank you.
That was quick and very efficient, and everybody has been efficient so far. Just a reminder, everyone has 5 minutes to give their update, a maximum of 5 minutes. Okay, so we're going to be moving on, and I'm going to invite our Commissioner of Police, Dr. Kevin Blake, to come, and then we will have JDF rep, but I will come back.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Also, our preparation for this oncoming hurricane commenced on Thursday of last week, where we started off with a series of meetings with our area commanders. We're all now in a state of readiness to stand up our incident command centers right across the island, and this will happen at 6 p.m. tomorrow. We have also had several meetings with some of our external stakeholders, including the JDF PEM, our Disaster Preparedness Committee, our Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, and several other relevant committees in having dialogue and discussion in terms of our readiness. Our divisional commanders have been meeting with our parish disaster committees, and we have established a liaison system with a number of liaison officers who will coordinate with other stakeholders at the parish levels in all 19 geographic divisions. And each liaison officer is at a minimum a senior superintendent of police. And this program will be managed by our acting assistant commissioner in charge of operation, Mr. Michael Bailey. We also have plans in readiness as soon as the shelters have been established to secure the shelters. In terms of our management structure, we will operate in a 4-tier management structure, which includes a headquarters management team that looks at the national picture and plugs into the other national apparatus. We will also establish a management team specifically for the corporate area, primarily because of the several important infrastructure that exists within the corporate area. At the area level, there is a command team, management team in each area, and also at the divisional level, we will have management team. And all these teams will feed up into the national JCF headquarters management team. With that, we should cover the entire island in terms of information and responding to any incident. We have enough human resource deployed. We have scaled down most of our operations, except all our operational persons will be out in their numbers. We will possibly be recalling some persons from leave in order to ensure that we have adequate deployment on the road during this period. Our highway patrols will continue to monitor our thoroughfares across the island to ensure that they remain usable and passable. Our mobile patrol will be concentrating primarily within the domestic spaces and the business districts. And our quick response, which may be extremely relevant given what may happen on our roadway, will be out in their full numbers to help to respond to incidents and also to protect our business communities. There are some key vital infrastructure that we have been looking at that we will be placing emphasis on looking at protecting in collaboration with our JDF, and these include Petrojam, our airports, our business districts, our hospitals, the major road networks, our courts, prisons, and all scheduled premises, including our high commissions and our embassies. In terms of our status of equipment and resources, we have completed an inventory of our supplies, and I'm pleased to say that we do have sufficient supply to take us through. We are also fortunate enough to have some heavy equipment that we have strategically placed at all area level, and these equipment will assist the other external entities in helping to clear debris and in the event of any search and rescue and disaster recovery. In terms of our communication network, it is paramount, very important that even if our commercial communication is down, our public safety remain up during this period. And as such, we have a very comprehensive plan in looking at securing our communication infrastructure, and this will be led by our technology branch. And the whole idea is to ensure constant monitoring of our communication sites and ensure that they are up. However, in the event that we have a site that is down, we have a response team, and we have ensured that they have adequate supply of maintenance equipment. We have also ensured that all our generators are properly fueled, and we have excess fuel to take us beyond the expected time of this hurricane. Our Police Emergency Command Center, which is critical, must remain up, and so we are doing all that is necessary to ensure that is the case. However, we do have a contingency plan in the event, in the unfortunate event. I must say, though, throughout all the disasters that we've seen, we have never had an incident or a case where our emergency command center has been down. And I do expect the same here. Notwithstanding, we still have a recovery plan at hand. In terms of our overall recovery plan with respect to communication, technology branch, as I mentioned before, they have immediate responsibility over that, and they will ensure that we respond to any break in any of our sites or in a communication system. We have persons on standby to be deployed for that purpose, and we will be coordinating with other agencies such as the ODPM, as well as other first responders and community organizations, and this is one of the roles that our liaisons will play. In terms of communication, we will ensure that the public has effective and timely communication, as we have probably one of the largest and most sophisticated communication arm through our CCN, which we will utilize effectively to bring the necessary information to the public. But also we have established a communication system internally for management so that we can make the necessary decisions and response as the need arise. And we have gotten the assurance from the JDF that we will continue to benefit from the support of the Vice Admiral, and many of our plans and our preparation meeting include the JDF, and we have been in this together. Let me assure Jamaica that the JCF will do all that is in its powers to keep Jamaica safe and to help us through this time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And the last last agency update we will get will be from the JDF. We have Vice Admiral Antoinette Weiss-Gorman, who will give you an update.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The JDF has initiated its normal protocols for hurricane preparedness. And so firstly, we have set about securing our bases and installations so that we are ready and available to serve the nation. That is fully underway. There are some implications nationally, some national assets that will not be available once we have secured them, such as our ships. That has implications for the fisher folk who by now will know that we have struck our base in Pedro Keys and will not be available to assist persons in search and rescue in that area until the ships have come back from hurricane avoidance. And I want to reiterate that it's very important that the fisher folk heed the warnings that have been given to them and make their way to mainland if they haven't done so already. Also, our aircraft, which provide essential services for movement of critically ill persons and search and rescue services, those will also be secured. They are in the process of being secured and should be completed by this afternoon, save and except the last one, which will stay as long as possible, and they will not be available as well. Nationally, we have a disaster response role, and we are very nested in the activities of the ODPM. We have been involved in all those meetings and are prepared to conduct our duties. The JDF is widely deployed across all three areas of command. In the JDF, we call them the Eastern, Central, and the Western Command, and we are fully deployed. Some particular assets are also pre-deployed for use should they become necessary. In our regional role, we are also prepared. Our response area is the northwestern area of the Caribbean, which will be impacted by this tropical event. And so our disaster assistance response team is screened and prepared and ready to deploy if we are so directed. So Jamaicans can rest assured that as normal, the JDF will be available and ready to assist. As the Commissioner has indicated, we're also very nested and aligned with the requirement to support the JCF for public order and other issues operationally. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. We are going to have two ministers now come to give some updates. We'll have Minister Mackenzie, who is a lead in all of this preparation that we have. He is the Minister of Local Government and Community Development, and followed right after will be Minister Beryl, the Minister of Science, Energy, Telecoms, and what's the last one? Transport. Yes, and he'll give you an update on all those areas.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The state of readiness in the Ministry of Local Government, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, is in full flight. I just want to advise the country that on the instructions of the Prime Minister, the National Disaster Council is now fully activated and the working committees. That is one area of information that the country should be aware. I want to start my brief presentation this afternoon by spending a couple of minutes in speaking about the efforts that are being made as I speak to secure our infirmaries and the homeless population across the country. There are two infirmaries that will be relocated if needs become necessary. That's in Trelawney, and the other is in St. Anne, which is next door to the ocean. It is important, ladies and gentlemen, that the infirmaries, the protocols that we are going to be putting down during this period, that the public recognize and acknowledge these protocols. All our municipal corporations have been making arrangements to transport the homeless population wherever we can find them, to whether our drop-in centers or infirmaries or schools that have been identified right across the country. So the municipal corporations have been working on that since yesterday, and they have intensified those activities over the last couple of hours. They have also intensified their drain cleaning preparations, as funds have been made available to all municipal corporations to undertake mitigation exercises across the country, and I can say that they have been responding in a very positive way. There are some critical areas that we have identified where persons who are physically challenged are living. We do have a list, and Minister Charles earlier today spoke about that, but the municipal corporations have now issued instructions that these persons must be found, and the necessary arrangements are being made to take them to the necessary locations that are being provided in the respective parishes. I must say to the country that the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management will be able to communicate to the country during the period of the hurricane, after the hurricane. The communication system that was jointly funded by the Japanese government and Jamaica will be fully utilized during this period of the hurricane. I think this is a game changer for Jamaica. It's the first time in the history of Jamaica that we will have a telecommunication system that will cover the entire island during, after, and going forward. We have already identified the areas where we are saying to the public, places like Port Maria, other areas we have put up early warning systems. I want to give the country the assurance that the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management is in a position to respond, and to respond positively to any outcome that faces us over the next couple of hours. The Jamaica Fire Brigade, one of our first respondents, has been provided with the necessary resources. They have had new equipments that will allow them to offer the kind of response services that will be required at this time. The trucks received recently by the National Solid Waste Management Authority, especially those 8 tipper trucks and the cranes, couldn't come at a better time. 10 trucks. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jamaicans, as the minister with responsibility for disaster preparedness, the country is in good hands. We have done the work. We'll be able to respond, and respond in a timely manner. Our shelters, once we are given the green light, we will activate the 870 shelters that is situated across the country. Relief supplies have been already secured. Our parish disaster coordinators are in a state of readiness. Our shelter managers are also in a state of readiness. I'm going to ask the country to be ready to work with us, to work with themselves, to ensure that we minimize the effects of the spending hurricane. We can only succeed if we work collectively to overcome the obstacles that we face over the next couple of days. I urge Jamaicans to be ready, prepared, and be aware.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few comments in relation to portfolio responsibilities that fall under my ambit. In terms of the telecommunication companies, both Flow and Digicel have assured me that their emergency plans are in place, and I'm also in touch with Starlink that could give us some coverage as well, and we'll hear more from them today in terms of that. The airports working together with the airlines, and of course, we'll open until it is no longer safe to do so. JPS, they already gave us their emergency plan from the end of May, so that is in place. And of course, JUTC, which plays a critical role in relation to working with OPEM in terms of transportation to shelters, etc. That protocol is in place. And last but not least, Petrojam. We have 2 weeks supply, Prime Minister, so we are in good stead and have arrangements for backup once we know what the true situation is. So from that perspective, I just want to reassure the country that these agencies, state and public agencies and private entities, are ready to work with the government in relation to a response. We hope and pray that we will not need it, but we always have to be prepared. So I give you that assurance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister Vaz. I should note that we don't have all of the agencies that met with the Cabinet here today. We did get updates from the NSWMA, from the Jamaica Fire Brigade, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. We also got an update from the Ministry of Agriculture, and many of their agencies are here in the room. The Ministry of Tourism also presented, and we had some comments from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs through the Minister in relation to outreach to our brothers and sisters in the Eastern Caribbean. So even though they're not here, we did get briefings from them, so it's been comprehensive briefings throughout the day. And now I will move on to our Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, to speak to the country.
Thank you, Minister. Colleagues, heads of entities that are here, members of the press, our Jamaican diaspora overseas, and of course, the rest of the world who are looking on and wishing and hoping the best for us. And indeed, let me also express our solidarity with our brothers and sisters in the Eastern Caribbean who are presently being affected. Now, I understand that it is a fast-moving system and that Barbados has already issued an all clear that it has moved past them. But they are still in some harm's way. The outer bands will still affect them. They will still get rain. And when we're finished here, we will get the assessment of damage to those countries, and whatever we can do, even in our own preparations, we will stand ready to assist. The system is an unusual one. I'm not going to pretend to be the weatherman today. Evan did such an excellent job in bringing the nation up to date, but it should be noted that this would be probably the first hurricane that has come so early in the season and has reached this category so quickly. It is a signal of the climate change issues that we are always very cognizant of. The hurricane seems to have the potential, once it has left the Eastern Caribbean, to either maintain or strengthen its capacity. So the projection that Evan gave us is that it could be a Category 2 when it reaches Jamaica. But all of this, Jamaicans should bear in mind, it is a projection of likelihood. It could degrade, and we would say, thank God. It could increase, and we would even pray harder. So, what can we do? As a country, we must be prepared. So today, I'm addressing you on what the government is doing to be prepared. There is a legislative framework which guides the government's preparation. And that framework is called the Disaster Risk Management Act. And at the beginning of the hurricane season, we called together all the entities that have anything to do with disaster preparedness. And Minister Mackenzie has already mentioned that the various committees under the Act have been initiated. So we're following that legislative framework, and we have put in place the various committees. Now, the government is contemplating, based upon the various updates that we have received, the implementation of orders under the Disaster Risk Management Act. This would give the government the necessary executive powers to be able to respond quickly and with flexibility. No decision has yet been taken. The Cabinet will reconvene in another hour or so, and when we review all the recommendations and presentations made, then we will inform the nation as to the implementation of orders under the DRMA. This is very important. It's very important to, one, establish that there is a disaster and that emergency rules would kick in. Very important for accountability afterwards. Sometimes, after disasters have passed, the accountability process sometimes does not incorporate that there was a disaster. And so it is important that the framework be well established. So it is likely that we will implement orders under the Disaster Risk Management Act. The nation will know this before 5 p.m. today. It will also be important for guiding our security forces, particularly in the taking of preemptive actions to prevent looting, which we have seen instances of this in disasters past, and we will not have and countenance any such thing in this pending emergency. It is also necessary to help us to guide and encourage the general public who may be in areas that are likely to be impacted significantly. By all projections, the storm, let me use a proper term, the hurricane, which it is now, is on a track to affect significantly the southern end of the island, which means that low-lying areas are going to be seriously affected. We will probably be affected by heavy rains, by flooding. We have seen when we are impacted in this way that some areas have been affected by landslides, which have caused deaths. Because it is a hurricane, we will also have high winds, which mean that we could see damage to residential property and to other infrastructure. So we have to be prepared for that. I want you to take note that both the JDF and the Fire Brigade have advised that at some point in time their services will not be available, meaning that for evacuations, for health responses, for emergency services, we may not have aircraft, boats, fire trucks, because those things may have to be secured during the hurricane. So this means that as citizens, you have to look at the threat to your immediate environment and make the right decision about evacuation. It is always a sensitive and touchy subject. I quite well understand people don't want to leave their property. They worry about security. But the most important thing is your life. So I would encourage you, please, the security forces, our emergency services would not be able to operate in the heights of the hurricane and even just before. And there may be even a delay after. So we encourage you, please, secure yourself by moving to higher ground, moving to safer ground, making arrangements with your family members to find safer place to be. So if you live, particularly in low-lying areas, starting from the most eastern end of the island. That would be anywhere in Portland and St. Thomas, coming up to the Mansion Hill area, coming all the way around. If you are in areas in the East Rural St. Andrew, coming around, please, you're going to be impacted. So take the necessary steps. I cannot implore you more than I'm doing now. I'm encouraging you, please take the necessary steps. The government is also making the necessary arrangements to ensure that we are able to respond after the hurricane has passed. We are in touch with the commercial trade to ensure that we have sufficient stocks in place, that persons can be able to at least have access to food and water after the hurricane has passed. As you would have heard from the relevant entities, that we have, Minister Vaz, remind me, is it 14 days of supply of fuel? We have 2 weeks supply of fuel. Our telecommunication services have been investing significantly in improving the resilience of their hard infrastructure, and we expect that they should stand up. But if there is any disruption or a break, we are pursuing alternatives to ensure that we are still connected, particularly for government entities. And Minister Vaz highlighted one of the parallel approaches we are taking to ensure connectivity and the continuation of business. In terms of information, in a disaster, information is critical. And in today's world, you will have many sources of information. I'm urging all citizens to pay close attention to the government information outlets and to your traditional, credible, well-established sources of information in the media. The GIS will be working directly now with ODPEM. ODPEM is in charge of the coordination and response of Jamaica's emergency preparation. An important part of our emergency response is how we communicate with the public. And so GIS will be working directly now with ODPEM to ensure that it gets out the information. So the GIS will be your central source. But all the media that are here, that are established, credible sources, they will be getting their information from the GIS. So there will be a consistent and even flow of information to the public to help you to make the decisions necessary for your safety. In terms of our plans for security, we are not yet contemplating any curfews or any limitation on movements. But as we get closer to the time and we are able to assess the intensity of the hurricane, then we will make those decisions and that will be communicated. At this point in time, I am encouraging all Jamaicans to take the hurricane as a serious threat. It is, however, not a time for panic. It is a time for us to be very strategic and calculated in our approach. We have 48 hours in which to prepare. Within that 48 hours, a lot could change. But we are taking this precautionary stance now because it is easier to be prepared when you're standing on your 2 feet than when you are in the midst of a hurricane struck down. So we're being, not overly cautious, not in a panic mode, but we are being very strategic in our response, and we want to convey that to the general public. You have enough time, enough notice to take the necessary precautions. And what would those precautions look like? First of all, we would encourage you to have your precautionary supply of food, at least 2 or 3 days, just in case. And that should be preferably water, most important, potable water for drinking, and canned foods to ensure that you can last for 3 days if the storm is of that impact that it prevents you from being able to get supplies at supermarkets and corner shops. You should also note that the power, our electricity service, and eventually water will go if the storm reaches a serious threshold. And this is a precautionary move by our utilities in many respects to ensure that there are no fires or serious damage to their equipment. And of course, to preserve our water supply in many instances. So you should ensure that you have some form of light, whether it is candles or batteries. And of course, if you are using candles, please ensure, well, if you're using any open flame, whether it is a candle or a home sweet home lamp, please ensure that you take the necessary precautions. Again, if you have a fire, you know, it would be very difficult for the fire brigade to respond. So we ask you to take precautions in that regard. Many households will be using generators. And some of these generators may very well be inside or close to where people actually live or sleep. And that can be dangerous because the generators emit an odorless and colorless gas, carbon monoxide, which could just easily wipe out an entire family if it is not dealt with properly. So if you have generators, make provisions for them to be outside, or there is provision for the exhaust to be moved out of the enclosed space. There will be, if there is a high wind, a general impact on residential housing, roofs and windows. So if you have objects that are in your home or in your vicinity that are not secured, those could become missiles in the event of high winds. So you would want to secure those as much as you can. So it means now that there has to be a level of cooperation between you and your neighbors. This is where the community spirit comes in, where we all have to secure our community. In some communities, particularly those that are undergoing construction, there may be aggregates around, and in the event of heavy rain, those will end up being washed out on roadways and into drains, and that can exacerbate flooding. So where we have aggregates and other building material, please secure them, put blocks around them, cover them with tarpaulins, just to ensure that they don't end up as debris in our drains, which would contribute to even greater flooding. So those are things that you can do for your personal documents. You want to ensure that they are also protected. But again, I repeat that for those persons who live in low-lying areas that have traditionally been impacted by storms and floods, that you want to take action now. So get in touch with your family members, start making preparations for evacuations. Listen out to the media, particularly the government entity, the government media entity, GIS, where the necessary warnings and updates will be given periodically. That is going to be important for you to help you with your decision making. Lastly, the NWA has been pre-mobilized, as you would have heard. We are looking at critical drains and gullies, and we are trying to get the cleaning done as quickly as possible. Let me reiterate the point made by the head of the NWA, that even if we were to clean all the drains, it is still likely that several areas in Jamaica will be flooded. If the rains that come, which are predicted, if they do come, the capacity of our existing drains, many of them built 60 years ago when they were thinking about these 1-in-100-year events, would not be able to immediately carry off the downpour. So we will have flooding, and that means that you have to protect your space. So it means maybe sandbagging. It means making sure that if you are lower than the roadway, and some areas are, that you protect your entryways where water could come in. So those are important things for the citizens to be aware of. And as I close my presentation to Jamaicans, you know, I'm a firm believer in prayer. And I would urge all Jamaicans now to pray for the safety of the country. In 2016, I believe it was, Hurricane Matthew threatened Jamaica. It was on its way. It was a certain hit. And then, inexplicably, it turned to the north. God is good all the time. God is good. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We did very well with time, and thank you for the reminder of prayer. We are a praying country, and we will pray for the safety of this country and all its citizens. I know the media may have some questions. We were live on almost every platform in Jamaica media platform, and some of the members are here, and they are also online. And so we will have the wonderful Press Secretary, Naomi, take over and take the questions from the media.
Thank you, Minister. Of course, we have representatives here. May I just remind the media, we're really focused on the meeting this morning with the Disaster Risk Management Committee and, of course, the presentations that happened a while ago. I recognize Ms. Maitland from TVJ. Again, just reintroduce yourself and ask a question, please.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jamila Maitland from TVJ. Mr. Thompson, Evan Thompson, said that he's expecting that all the fishers would have evacuated from the Keys. I'm just asking the Minister of National Security or the JDF if they can confirm that. And is there a cutoff time, a deadline as it relates to when these fishers are supposed to get off these Keys? Thanks.
I think our CDS is coming to respond here, but the advisory was put out, and they've been informed that they needed to do so already.
Thank you. Just to reiterate what the Minister just said, that all fishers should have already evacuated and have made their way to mainland. Certainly the Coast Guard station with the police element that is at the Pedro Keys, that base has been struck, and we are no longer available there to remove persons because we have to set our ships to sea. And so for those who are not already done so, they should do so post haste.
Afternoon. Mahiri Stewart from Nationwide News here. Question to the Prime Minister. Could you expound a bit on the National Disaster Fund and how it's going to be implemented as we weather through this hurricane?
The National Disaster Fund is a fund that is contributed in many ways into local government, but it is held in the Ministry of Finance. It can be used for mitigating purposes. It can be used to respond. That is not the overall funds that will be available to the country based on, so I don't want the 500 million to be considered as what we would be using to respond. It is a portion of the security that has been created by the government to respond to disaster. Okay? But that 500 million can be accessed by virtue of a request being made, and then the Ministry of Finance would follow through on that. But the bulk of our security rests in the insurance policies that this administration have been able to put in place.
All right, great. Are there any other questions? All right, given that we have been around for a little while this morning. Oh, there's one from CVM. Let me run to her.
Hi, afternoon. Courtney Lewis from CVM. Should the hurricane be more severe than projected, how are we assured that the fuel supply mentioned before is actually adequate?
The Ministry of Investment, Industry and Commerce is now in dialogue with the commercial trade to verify the stocks that are available. But I can say that generally Jamaica has good stocks and supplies. Historically, it has proven to be the case, so I'm not expecting that we will hear anything differently. By 4 o'clock today, we will have a full report as to what our actual stocks are. The thing I would say, however, is that given the emerging nature of this hurricane, it appears to be fast moving. And if it continues to be fast moving, then the impact, we would say, would be maybe a day or two. And so we would have the ability to restock. But for that period of time, I think we should have enough stocks available.
Jamila, you have another question? Jamila again from TVJ. Minister Mackenzie, you spoke about the telecom system that was, Minister Mackenzie, you spoke about the telecom system that we're going to be using. Can you just expound a little bit on that? And to what extent is the police involved in all of that too?
Well, it is a broad-based radio telecommunication system that is spread right across the country. All 14 parishes. There are base stations that have been erected in each municipality and selected locations across the country. There are annual radios, and this system ties in the police, ties in the Jamaica Fire Brigade. So it's a broad-based communication system that is established in the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management that is manned by the Jamaica Fire Brigade. As I speak, test runs are being made on the system. If that answers your question.
Thank you, Minister. And then our final question, we give it to Mahiri.
Yeah, one last question for the Prime Minister. I believe you alluded to it earlier that you had been in communication with other leaders from other Caribbean countries that may be affected. Could you expound on the talks that you had with them and the feedback they've given you based off of what they've experienced so far?
No, I have not been in any direct conversation. We do have a chat group that we monitor. So I've been seeing the conversations going back and forth. All the islands in the region have been preparing pretty much like what we are doing. And we stand ready to assist, providing that our resources aren't all tied up here. We have something called the DART, the Disaster Assistance Response Team, which we have deployed twice. We've deployed to Dominica, we've deployed to the Bahamas to assist. I have not, since I've been in meetings, I have not had a chance to see what the impact has been on our sister islands. I know Barbados has issued an all clear, but I haven't seen a disaster impact assessment as yet. But as soon as we get that, then we will make our statement. And even though we are in our own preparations, we are always standing by to assist. Yeah, and it's important that in terms of CDEMA, which is the Caribbean Emergency Response, Jamaica has lead response for the northwestern end. Yes. Any other question? Thank you.
There's one more, and then we will close out. Prime Minister, I do know that Cabinet is on.
Yeah, we have to convene shortly.
Last one. Once again, Courtney Lewis from CVM. In the time of our earthquakes, the government was accused of being too slow to communicate. What can you tell us about your communication apparatus at this point?
I don't think, I understand the question you want to ask, but the accuracy, the government was very quick in communicating. I think the issue was that persons were saying ODPEM's communication should have been more fulsome, might be the word, or more robust. And so we have recognized that as a gap, and what we have decided to do now is to reinforce ODPEM's communications abilities with support from the GIS, which in any event the GIS would be part of their centralized response. But so that we have a very effective communication strategy now, the GIS will take the lead in ensuring that the necessary information that the public should get, particularly the technical information, that will be provided and supported in terms of the decisions that ODPEM would make, then the GIS would convey that. But just quickly in terms of communications, so there are several levels. I mean, there is the information that we give to the public, and so, you know, ODPEM has to make certain decisions based upon its field of view, and ODPEM has the widest field of view because it coordinates all the entities. And so whatever decision it makes, then the GIS will help them to package that for communication. And then there is the actual now delivery of the information. So we are going to be relying on our media that we expect to be still up and broadcasting even during the hurricane as best as possible. But even if we were to have a disruption in media, we still have an emergency communication service, which is largely for the internal workings of the government. So the JCF will still be up, the JDF will still be up, and the new system for ODPEM will still be up. And we are also continuing to further develop our links, our internet links, should our telecommunication services be disrupted. So we should always be in a position not just to have information, but to effectively disseminate and communicate that to the public. So in closing, the government has two lines of actions for readiness. The first is the internal preparedness of the government, and that is guided by the Disaster Risk Management Act. We have followed all the procedures of that act. All the entities and all the leaders and all the persons who are authorized and designated personnel, they have been mobilized. They know what their task is, they know what their duties are, and we expect that the government's response will be effective and will be quick. And then the other line of effort is to inform the public, to get the public on board, to get the public in the right frame of mind, and to build a level of cooperation as we face the impending threat of the hurricane. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, PM. Thank you all for joining us. And bulletin number 4 just came out, the 2 p.m. bulletin. And as PM had said, we have to listen to those bulletins. Thank you all.